Before we dive into the unpredictable world of Jurassic World, Chaos Theory Season 3, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell. That way, you won't miss any of our deep dive breakdowns. Because in this season, chaos isn't just coming, it's already here. From the smallest accidents to the biggest disasters, every choice sets off a chain reaction, and survival depends on reading the chaos before it swallows you whole. Let's get into it. The story opens at Delaney University, a quiet academic setting that quickly becomes tense. The handler, a cold and efficient operative, corners Professor Chuck Desai on Santos' orders. The air between them is charged. Desai knows far more than he's willing to admit, but the handler makes it clear his cooperation isn't optional. Meanwhile, across campus, the Nublar Six, Darius, Kenji, Yaz, Sammy, Ben, and Brooklynn, are reeling from a devastating blow. Brooklynn, their trusted friend, has just left with Santos aboard her private plane. And she didn't just walk away. She took Bumpy's egg with her. The betrayal cuts deep. The others exchange stunned, angry glances, unsure if they'll ever see the Brooklynn they knew again. But before they can process the emotional wound, headlights cut through the night. A large transport vehicle pulls in, carrying a Kentrosaurus, a massive, plated dinosaur with lethal tail spikes. It's being loaded into a cargo plane, and at the helm of this operation is none other than Barry Sembin, a French intelligence agent and former Velociraptor trainer from Jurassic World itself. Darius instantly recognizes him, recalling stories of his skill and his history with Owen Grady. Barry surprises them by allowing the Nublar Six to join him on his flight to Munich. But trust is thin. The group bickers over Brooklynn's betrayal and whether Barry might have his own agenda. The uneasy atmosphere worsens mid-flight when disaster strikes. The Kentrosaurus suddenly stops breathing. Panic sets in. Sammy, acting on instinct, grabs an adrenaline injector and plunges it into the dinosaur's flank. The good news? It works. The bad news? The dinosaur wakes in a panic, thrashing wildly, and its spiked tail punches straight through the plane's hull. Alarms blare. The wind howls. Barry fights to keep the plane steady, while Sammy tries to sedate the animal again. Kenji, in a rare moment of focus, helps stabilize the aircraft's controls. The tranquilizer finally takes effect, but it's too late. The damage forces Barry to attempt an emergency landing. The cargo plane crash lands in the Dolomite Mountains of Italy. Snow and debris scatter across the landing site. Barry radios for backup, but the Nublar Six are already slipping away into the shadows, afraid he might turn them over to the authorities. Their destination, Ben's girlfriend's home in northern Italy, a safe place, at least for now. Back in Dubai, Santos rewards Brooklynn for her loyalty, or perhaps her usefulness, by gifting her a sleek, mechanical prosthetic arm. The metallic fingers curl into a fist as Brooklynn stares at her reflection, the weight of her choices pressing down. Whether this is a step toward power or a step too far is something only time will tell. Snow still clings to the Dolomite peaks as the Nublar Six make their way down winding roads toward Villa Paradiso, the countryside home belonging to Ben's girlfriend's family. The villa is all terracotta walls and arched windows, a warm contrast to the biting cold they've just endured. But peace here is fragile. Ben's girlfriend, Avery, greets them with cautious warmth. She's heard of the group's past, the island's survival, the dinosaurs, the chaos, and while she's concerned for them, she can tell there's trouble trailing close behind. The others notice Avery's protective glances toward Ben, as if she already senses the danger he's brought to her doorstep. Meanwhile, in Munich, Barry is busy containing the fallout from the crash. French intelligence is pressuring him for answers, and the Kentrosaurus has become a major headache. This dinosaur isn't just rare, it's a hot commodity for black market buyers. Barry suspects there's more to this transport mission than he was told. Back at the villa, the group tries to relax, but relaxation never lasts for the Nublar Six. Late at night, Kenji hears faint rustling outside. He peers through the window and spots figures moving in the darkness. Before they can react, the villa is stormed by armed men. Santos' influence has reached even here. A chase erupts through the olive groves surrounding the villa. Yaz and Sammy split off, weaving between the trees, while Darius and Kenji draw the attackers away toward the back of the property. Ben, desperate to protect Avery, leads her toward a hidden cellar. But in the confusion, a familiar sound cuts through the chaos, the low, guttural growl of a dinosaur. It's not the Kentrosaurus. It's something smaller, faster, and far deadlier, a velociraptor. How it got here is a mystery, but its presence confirms one thing. Santos has operatives who are transporting live predators across borders with terrifying efficiency. The fight to get everyone to safety becomes a split-second race between human and predator. Kenji distracts the raptor with a flare, giving Yaz and Sammy just enough time to regroup. They slam a heavy wooden door shut behind them, the raptor's claws raking the wood with an ear-splitting screech. In the aftermath, the villa is trashed, their location compromised, and Avery, terrified but resolute, tells Ben they can't stay. The group has no choice but to move on, with the realization that Santos' reach is far greater than they imagined. And somewhere in Dubai, Brooklynn watches a live feed from the villa attack. Her new prosthetic hand flexes unconsciously as she whispers something only she can hear. They're not ready for what's coming. The cold mountain air has given way to the damp, earthy scent of a coastal forest. The Nublar Six are now in Northern California, following a lead that could change everything, a rumor that Blue, the legendary velociraptor once trained by Owen Grady, is still alive somewhere near the redwood forests. Darius leads the way, his voice low but urgent. Blue isn't just another dinosaur. She's intelligent, fast, and fiercely protective. If Santos is targeting her, she could become the ultimate prize in the black market trade. And worse, Blue has a child, a young raptor named Beta. Meanwhile, in Dubai, Santos receives a delivery. Brooklyn watches as a steel crate is opened, revealing a Dilophosaurus, its frilled neck folded neatly, its eyes alert but calm. Santos' smile is chilling. Every acquisition strengthens her hand. She orders her men to prepare for an expansion phase, hinting at something much larger than simple smuggling. Back in the forest, the group stumbles upon fresh tracks, three-toed impressions pressed deep into the damp soil. Sammy crouches to examine them. "This is her," she whispers. The tracks lead to a clearing where a deer carcass lies, still warm. The air is thick with tension. Suddenly, the underbrush explodes with movement. Blue bursts into view, her movements a blur of muscle and precision. She doesn't attack, not immediately, but circles them, gauging their intentions. Her gaze locks on Darius, the only one holding his ground. Before any fragile trust can form, a dart hisses through the air and strikes Blue in the side. The team spins around to see mercenaries emerging from the treeline, rifles trained on the raptor. A tranquilized Blue stumbles, snarls, and bolts, the sedative slowing her, but not stopping her. The forest erupts into chaos. Darius and Yas sprint after her, dodging darts and shouting for the others to scatter. Kenji grabs a smoke grenade from one of the mercenaries and sets it off, buying them precious seconds. Through the haze, they spot Blue limping toward a hidden ravine. At the ravine's edge, Darius makes a split-second choice. He and Yaz jump down after her. The fall is rough, but they land in a mossy, shadowed gulch where Blue collapses, breathing heavily. Darius approaches slowly, his voice soft, reassuring her they mean no harm. But the sound of boots crunching above signals they're out of time. The episode ends with a tense image, Blue's eyes flicking from Darius to the mercenaries closing in, her body coiled with both fear and the instinct to fight. The ravine is quiet except for the shallow, uneven breaths of Blue. Darius kneels beside her, knowing they have seconds before the mercenaries descend. Yaz keeps watch, scanning the ledge above for shadows moving in the fog. When the first rope drops, Darius makes his move. He unclips the tranquilizer dart from Blue's side and tosses it into the underbrush. "We're not here to hurt you," he whispers, his voice calm but urgent. Blue's muscles twitch, not entirely trusting but not attacking either. The mercenaries drop in, weapons raised. But instead of charging, Blue bolts through a narrow crevice in the rock wall, disappearing into a network of hidden tunnels. Darius and Yas follow instinctively, the darkness swallowing them whole. Meanwhile, up top, Kenji, Sammy, and Ben are playing a dangerous game. They've managed to capture one of the mercenaries and strip him of his comms gear. Sammy slips on the headset, feeding false coordinates to the rest of the hunters. The goal? Lure them away from Blue and into a section of forest crawling with Dilophosauruses. The plan works, at first. The mercenaries chase the false signal, grumbling over comms as their path becomes muddier, denser. Then the hiss comes. The foliage shakes, frilled necks unfurl, and high-pitched screeches echo through the trees. In seconds, chaos erupts. Back in the tunnels, Darius and Yaz emerge into a hidden clearing, a nesting site. Beta, Blue's young offspring, peeks out from behind a log, chirping softly. The moment is brief, but powerful. Darius realizes this isn't just about saving Blue, it's about protecting her family. But the reprieve shatters when two mercenaries find the clearing. One raises a rifle at Beta, and in that instant Blue is no longer cautious. She's fury incarnate. She lunges, disarming one and sending the other scrambling. The fight is over in seconds, but the danger is far from gone. The episode closes with a clever visual, the team regrouping at the forest's edge, Blue and Beta watching from the shadows. For the first time, Darius thinks he sees gratitude in her eyes. But as they disappear into the foliage, a figure steps into view, Brooklynn, watching from a distance, her mechanical arm glinting in the fading light. Night falls over the redwood forest, the fog curling low around the trunks like silent sentinels. The Nublar Six huddle around a small, hidden campfire, their faces lit in flickers of orange. Every crack of a branch in the distance sets nerves on edge. Darius lays out the plan. They can't keep outrunning Santos people forever. They need intel, and that means turning the hunt back on their hunters. Yaz suggests using the mercenaries' own gear to track their movements. Kenji, still rattled from their last close call, is reluctant. "We're not soldiers," he says. But the truth is, they've been surviving like ones for years. Meanwhile, in Dubai, Santos is in a sleek glass conference room, presenting to a panel of shadowy investors. On the table, blueprints for a massive offshore facility, a secure containment and breeding site. Brooklynn stands behind her, silent but watchful, the prosthetic fingers of her new arm idly tapping on a tablet. When one investor questions whether they can actually control creatures like Blue, Santos simply smiles. Control is not the point. Exclusivity is. Back in California, the group's trap begins. Sammy plants a transmitter in a supply crate, knowing the mercenaries will retrieve it. Sure enough, within hours, they're tracking a convoy heading toward the coast. But there's a wrinkle. The convoy isn't carrying weapons. It's carrying transport cages. Following from the tree line, they reach a secluded port where a massive freighter is being loaded. Inside one of the cages is something none of them expected, a young stegosaurus, sedated and chained. The sight hits Sammy especially hard. She remembers growing up on a ranch, caring for animals, and this feels like a betrayal of nature itself. Yaz and Ben move to sabotage the loading crane while Darius and Kenji work on unlocking the cage. Just as they're about to free the stegosaur, headlights sweep across the dock. A convoy of black SUVs rolls in, and Brooklynn steps out. The reunion is anything but warm. Brooklynn's voice is steady but cold, as if she's rehearsed this confrontation in her head 100 times. "You're in over your heads. Walk away." But her warning is cut short when one of the mercenaries spots Darius at the cage. A gun is raised, a shout goes out, and chaos floods the dock. The freighter's horn blares as it begins to pull away, half-loaded. The group scatters, dodging spotlights and gunfire. In the confusion, the Stegosaurus manages to break free and rampages through the port, sending mercenaries diving for cover. As the team escapes into the night, Kenji glances back just in time to see Brooklynn watching them leave, her expression unreadable, somewhere between regret and resolve. The night after the port raid is restless. The group has taken refuge in an abandoned ranger station deep in the forest. The wood creaks with every gust of wind, and the air smells faintly of oil and dust, a forgotten place, perfect for lying low. But rest isn't coming easily. Darius pores over the stolen intel from the mercenaries' comms, piecing together a bigger picture. The freighter wasn't headed to Dubai directly. It's making multiple stops, each at remote coastal points known for discreet cargo exchanges. This is a network, not just a single smuggling run. Meanwhile, Yaz is struggling with more than just strategy. She's still nursing a bruised shoulder from the villa attack, but she hides it well. What she can't hide is the growing paranoia, the sense that Brooklynn might not be entirely coerced into working with Santos. In Dubai, Brooklynn and Santos are reviewing footage from the port attack. Santos is irritated, but Brooklynn keeps her voice calm. "We got what we needed," she says, tapping her tablet. It's clear she's playing a dangerous game, feeding just enough information to Santos to stay in her good graces while concealing her true intentions. Back at the ranger station, the group debates their next move. Ben argues for going underground, disappearing until Santos' operation dies down. But Darius insists that running only delays the inevitable. "They won't stop," he says. "The only way out is through." Their argument is interrupted by a low, rhythmic vibration in the ground. At first, it feels like distant thunder, but the sound grows, the windows rattling in their frames. Out of the treeline emerges a ceratosaurus, its snout lifting as it sniffs the air. It's wearing a GPS collar, proof that Santos has been tracking and moving predators like chess pieces. The group has to think fast. They can't fight the dinosaur directly, not without serious risk, so they decide to turn its aggression toward the mercenaries. Luring it with a flare, they position themselves between the ceratosaurus and the approaching hunters. The plan works almost too well. The predator barrels into the mercenaries' camp, scattering men and equipment. But in the chaos, one of the hunters manages to tag Kenji with a tranquilizer dart. He's not fully down, but sluggish, barely able to keep his balance. They barely escape, hauling Kenji into the back of a stolen Jeep. As they drive off, the headlights catch Brooklynn at the edge of the road. She's not chasing them. She's letting them go. And in that fleeting moment, Yas sees it. The tiniest nod, almost imperceptible, as if Brooklynn is silently telling them to keep moving. The stolen Jeep rattles along the coastal highway, its tires crunching over gravel. Dawn breaks in muted golds and blues over the Pacific, but inside the Jeep, the mood is tense. Kenji is slumped against the window, the tranquilizer still fogging his mind. Every few minutes, Yaz checks on him, her worry showing through the usual tough exterior. Darius studies the map they lifted from the mercenaries' kit. The next freighter exchange is happening in less than 48 hours, a remote, fenced-in beach used for restricted shipments. If they can intercept it, they might finally get proof of Santos' operation. That's undeniable. Meanwhile, Brooklynn is playing both sides more dangerously than ever. In Santos' Dubai office, she pulls up satellite imagery of the same beach, a move that on the surface looks like intel gathering for Santos, but in reality, she's leaving breadcrumbs for the Nublar Six to follow. Santos doesn't notice, or maybe she does and simply doesn't care, confident in her own control. The group reaches the outskirts of the beach at sunset. The sand is broken by jagged rocks and rusting shipping containers, relics from old smuggling days. From a ridge, they spot the incoming freighter. The silhouette of a massive creature shifts inside one of the cages on deck. Even from here, they can tell it's something new. But getting close won't be easy. The beach is crawling with mercenaries, drones buzzing overhead. Sammy proposes a split. She and Ben will create a diversion inland, drawing guards away, while Darius, Yaz, and a still-recovering Kenji infiltrate the shoreline. The inland diversion works almost too well. Sammy sets off a series of small charges that send plumes of sand and smoke into the air. Mercenaries scramble toward the noise, leaving gaps in their defense. But just as Darius' group reaches the container stacks, a spotlight pins them in place. From the shadows, Brooklynn steps forward. For a moment, it feels like betrayal all over again. But then, under her breath, she says just loud enough for Darius to hear. "Third container from the left. Top block is fake."
They move fast.
Darius climbs, undoing the disguised latch. Inside, instead of a dinosaur, they find a shipment of fertilized dinosaur eggs, dozens of them, packed in temperature-controlled cases. This isn't just animal trafficking. It's an attempt to restart the entire Jurassic breeding program under Santos' control. Before they can secure the evidence, a roar cuts through the surf. The creature from the freighter, a massive Sycomomus, has broken free during unloading. The mercenaries panic, gunfire echoing over the waves. Darius makes the call, leave the eggs for now, save lives first. As the group flees into the chaos, Brooklynn is left standing in the middle of the sand, watching the Sycomomus vanish into the shallows. For the first time, the line she's been walking between survival and sabotage feels like it's starting to crumble beneath her feet. The Sycomomus crash has turned the remote beach into a war zone. Mercenaries scramble to contain the predator, their shouts blending with the thunder of waves against the rocks. Floodlights swing wildly, cutting jagged arcs across the sand. Darius, Yaz, and Kenji take cover behind a stack of cargo pallets, hearts pounding. The eggs are still in sight, but every path to them now runs straight through the feeding zone of a panicked, wounded apex hunter. Meanwhile, inland, Sammy and Ben's diversion has gone sideways. The small charges they planted triggered an old munitions cache buried beneath the dunes. A deafening blast shatters the ridge, sending a rain of sand and shrapnel across their position. Sammy is thrown hard, her ears ringing, while Ben drags her into the cover of a collapsed storage hut. Through the ringing, they hear the Sycomomus roar, distant, but getting closer. Back on the shoreline, Brooklynn makes a move that shocks everyone. She deliberately shuts down the outer floodlights, plunging half the beach into shadow. Clock's ticking, she mutters under her breath, and in the confusion, Darius realizes this is their only shot. They sprint. Kenji, still shaky from the tranquilizer, nearly slips, but Yaz grabs his arm and pulls him forward. They reach the egg container and snap a few quick photos before sealing the latch again. No time to carry the cases without drawing attention. Then, disaster. A mercenary drone sweeps low, its sensors locking onto their heat signatures. It emits a piercing alarm, and in seconds, the team is surrounded by armed men. But before a shot can be fired, the Sycomomus charges through the shallow water, smashing into the dock with bone-rattling force. One of its clawed arms catches a mercenary mid-run, hurling him into the waves. The dock begins to splinter under its weight, sending equipment and men tumbling into the surf. Darius and the others use the chaos to escape inland, linking up with Sammy and Ben in the dunes. They're bruised, battered, and carrying only a camera full of images, but it's enough to expose Santos' operation if they can get the evidence to the right hands. As they retreat into the night, Brooklynn stays behind, helping the remaining mercenaries pull back from the breaking dock. Santos approaches her, smiling faintly. "You're earning your place," she says. But the glint in Brooklynn's eyes isn't loyalty, it's resolve. By the time the Nublar Six regroup at an abandoned lighthouse miles down the coast, the storm has rolled in. Rain lashes the cracked windows, and the beam from the lantern tower sweeps across the churning sea like a warning. Inside, the air smells of damp stone and rust, every footstep echoing in the hollow space. Darius transfers the egg shipment photos to multiple devices. Redundancy is survival. They all know Santos' reach is long, and if she catches wind they have this evidence, she'll send everything she has after them. Kenji sits in silence, watching the rain bead on the glass. When Yaz asks what's wrong, he finally speaks. "Brooklynn could have stopped us, but she didn't." It's the first time any of them openly admit that her role in Santos' operation might be more complicated than it looks. Meanwhile, in Dubai, Santos is in damage control. The Sycomomus incident has made ripples in her investor network, and she's spinning the story as an isolated containment error. But in private, she's furious, especially when she learns that a high-resolution image of the fertilized eggs has already begun circulating in certain black market forums. The leak came from inside her own ranks. Brooklynn keeps her face neutral when Santos confronts her. "If I wanted to expose you, you'd already be finished," she says. Santos studies her for a long, Tense moment before letting the matter drop, but the air between them is now razor-thin with distrust. Back at the lighthouse, the group debates their next move. Ben pushes for sending the images directly to the authorities. But Darius warns that without physical proof, Santos could easily discredit them. Sammy suggests a middle path. Track the next shipment and intercept it before it leaves the continent. That way they can get both the eggs and the evidence into safe hands. Then, an unexpected visitor arrives, Brooklynn. She's soaked from the rain, her hair plastered to her face. "We don't have much time," she says, skipping past any reunion pleasantries. She lays out a map and points to a location circled in red, a heavily guarded marine facility where Santos keeps her most valuable assets before transfer. It's the first time the group has seen her clearly break from Santos. But trust isn't automatic. Yaz's voice is ice cold. Why now? Why not before? Brooklynn meets her gaze. Because before, I didn't know how far she'd go. Now I do. The thunder outside swells, rattling the lighthouse walls, as the unspoken truth hangs in the air. Whatever comes next, they'll be going straight into the lion's den. The marine facility looms ahead like a steel fortress at the edge of the ocean, its floodlights cutting through the early morning fog. Massive fences ring the perimeter, topped with razor wire that glistens with dew. Beyond them, tanks and holding pens ripple with dark, restless water, the kind that hides teeth. The Nublar Six, now joined by Brooklynn, crouch behind a rocky outcrop just offshore. They've come by small inflatable raft, paddling silently to avoid sonar detection. The plan is brutally simple: slip in through the intake canal, document everything inside, and extract with both physical and digital proof before the morning shift arrives. As they slip into the water, the cold bites into their skin. Yaz takes point, guiding them into the narrow tunnel that feeds the filtration system. It's cramped, pitch black, and echoes with a low thrum of pumps. Then, a shadow glides past beneath them, a Mosasaurus juvenile, its massive shape barely visible in the murk. Someone, somewhere, has been raising oceanic apex predators in secret. They surface inside the facility's inner basin, pulling themselves onto the maintenance dock. Brooklynn leads them through a maze of corridors lined with observation windows. Behind one, a pen holds multiple juvenile carnivores, Baryonyx, Herosaurus, even a rare Proceratosaurus. The sheer scale of Santos' operation hits them like a physical blow. Darius and Ben work quickly, photographing and cataloging everything. Sammy cracks open a case in the storage bay, revealing rows of egg canisters, each tagged with a destination code. One is marked for Offload Arctic, proof that the black market is spreading far beyond the tropics. But the alarm comes faster than expected. One of Santos' security teams spots wet footprints on the dock, and within seconds, sirens wail through the complex. Red lights spin overhead, bathing the corridors in a pulsing glow. The escape turns into a sprint. They dive back into the intake canal as gunfire echoes behind them, the sharp cracks muted underwater. But just as they near the open sea, the Mosasaurus reappears, and this time, it's curious. Its massive jaw opens, the white flash of its teeth cutting through the gloom. Kenji grabs a flare from his vest, igniting it in a burst of blinding red light. He waves it wildly, drawing the predator's attention just long enough for the others to push through the last stretch. The heat of the flare burns his hand, but he doesn't let go until they're in the clear. They haul themselves onto the raft, gasping, soaked, but clutching the hard drives and cameras that could blow Santos' empire wide open. In the distance, the facility shrinks into the fog, but the weight of what they've just done presses heavier than ever. Brooklynn breaks the silence. You all wanted proof? Now you've got it. The question is, who's going to believe us before it's too late? The raft drifts into the open ocean, the morning sun breaking through the clouds, as somewhere deep below, the Mosasaurus circles, a reminder that the game they've stepped into is far from over. And that's how Season 3 of Chaos Theory proves Malcolm's point once again. Life finds a way, and chaos always wins. If you enjoyed this breakdown, drop a like, share it with a fellow Jurassic fan, and subscribe so you're ready when we tackle the next wave of unpredictable mayhem. Because in Jurassic World, the next disaster is always just one wrong step away.